وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم جزاكم الله khairan for joining us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of our fast. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of our dua. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for all of our shortcomings. We continue with where we left off. We're on the 8th juz. We stopped on the 7th juz where it stops in the middle of Al-An'am. And it ended with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us in a certain way, but really we should be able to take a lot more out of it. Where He says, and do not curse the mushrikeen, their gods. وَلَا تَسُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Those people who ascribe, who call other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't curse them. This is something that we have to understand, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a commandment, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a purpose and gives us an effort to be doing, never should those commandments, that purpose or that effort that we're trying to do make us worse. It should all be making us better. And if it's making us worse, that means we're doing something wrong. It should all these awamir, the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either make us and bring us good qualities, keep the bad qualities and deeds and actions and words away from us, and get us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The closer we get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more pure, the better that we should be getting. We shouldn't be getting worse as we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sometimes, someone's passion may get the best of them, where they think that, okay, well, I can't believe this guy's not worshiping Allah, or I can't believe this guy's doing this, or I can't believe this guy's sinning like this, and they start thinking bad, even to the point where they could say some bad words. This is not the way that the Prophet ﷺ told us. He even said in a hadith that I was not sent as someone to curse, and he wouldn't curse people. Even when he was told by certain Sahaba to curse such and such nation because they're not coming into the fold of Islam, the Prophet ﷺ made dua for them, and that they come into the fold of Islam, and they did. So we're the same way, that no matter how bad of an act, even though shirk is that one deed, polytheism is that one deed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive, that doesn't give us the right to now curse those people that are doing that act. That's not our purpose. We're supposed to be means of guidance for ourselves and for others around us, and that will not happen if we show bad characteristics. Now, one of the things that we should understand, that why should we not do those things? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says those people that want to believe, you don't need to go to that extent to make them believe. They'll believe even if you tell them just what you're supposed to. And those people who don't believe, that even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings down angels from the sky, brings the dead back to life right in front of them, they're not going to believe. And it's happened already in the past. Isa alayhi salam brought someone back to life from the dead to speak to the people. Isa alayhi salam cured people from sicknesses that they had no cure for it. And people were watching him. They're seeing all this happen. Yet a lot of them did not believe. It's whoever wants to, they'll understand it's a miracle and they'll open their hearts to the truth. And whoever doesn't want to, they'll find a reason to deny it. So never should we be making ourselves worse in, for example, screaming, cursing, arguing with people, trying to get them to come to our understanding. That's not the way. You explain and you let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says that what's the reason for this? There's actually devils, the same way that we get inspiration, or not we, but any one of us who gets inspiration from good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the angels. We also can get inspiration, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there are devils that give inspiration to their awliya. And they give them what to say, they tell them what to say, they tell them things that can really hit the right buttons, push the right buttons on you, and then all of a sudden you explode with emotion, you explode with anger, and ultimately messing up your character. In the same way, we can also be influenced the same way by shaitan, and we're getting into arguments on things that we shouldn't even be getting over. The Sahaba who were in the month of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ knew when Laylatul Qadr was. And when some Sahaba, before he could come down, two Sahaba were arguing about when Laylatul Qadr was, and the Prophet ﷺ said, the fact that you were arguing that made me forget the time of when Laylatul Qadr is. And maybe though that's better for you, because now that you don't know, you'll try to make more efforts throughout the night. So he says, so search for it in the last 10 nights of Ramadan on the odd nights. So it's good for us in one way or another. Of That's from the time of the Prophet ﷺ. But at this time, now that we're over here, there's no more wahi. There's nothing else being added to the deen. We should not be arguing over such things. Scholars will debate. Scholars will debate, and there's nothing wrong with that, to come to an understanding of what's the best opinion, what's the in every situation. Is this a different situation? That's the work of the scholars. But to actually get into an argument with people, even our own community members or even our own family members, that is not the way that we're supposed to be talking about Al-Islam. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is being the surah of Al-An'am, He starts speaking of how we should be eating only those things with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name has been mentioned on. And this is a practice that we all Muslims, we always follow, that when something is slaughtered, you say Bismillah and then you eat it. And when something doesn't have Bismillah on it, you don't eat that. And there's a lot of controversial opinions on that that I'm not going to be getting into right now. If you need any more clarification, you can go to your local imam. There's a wide variety of it, so it's going to take a long time for me to discuss all of that. But what happens is that with even these cattle, the mushrikeen, they actually created and made habits and made rituals that even involve the cattle, where they would say certain meat is not okay, it's haram for the women to eat, but the men could eat it, or this is, this part of the portion of the meat is for Allah, this part we're going to sacrifice it and give it to our gods. And they started creating rituals with even the cattle that's there. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that, show me. Okay, there's cattle, there's goats, there's sheep, there's cows, there's camels. Okay, show me, where did I make it haram? Read me somewhere that's been that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it haram. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, that's not the case. Go tell them the only things that are haram are what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, which is the carcass, the blood that's flowing, the dead, the pig, and such, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly mentions in the Quran, or in the hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions. Other than that, the people that are creating such things is not correct. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls that, and it's just so we know that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive shirk, because this is the possibility of shirk. When shirk comes, like I said, there's no barriers. We got the barriers around us, which is the ayat of the Quran and the hadith. When it comes to shirk, there is no book, and because of that, there's no barrier. So you can go as far away as you want, away from the path that you originally wanted to, and just go to an extreme, into whatever. And people create oppressive societies because of that, because there is no limits to what they can and cannot do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end of the surah, He says, come, I will tell you what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you to do, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. And it starts, not ascribing a partner to Him, being good to your parents, making sure that you're not being good to your kids, and also the orphans. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts mentioning all these ayats, and goes back and says Musa alayhi salam had his own share of commandments as well. They're not sticking to that. And this Quran is a clear blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there to guide you, so that you can understand that you're going to return back to your Lord. And when it comes to the end of the surah, right at the end of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us some ayats that's very nice, that Imam Shafi'i, some scholars, they read the thana like Imam Abu Hanifa. They say Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika wa tabarak asmuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruk, or a variation of that before they start the salah. Whereas Imam Shafi'i, he reads this part where he says Qul inna salati wa nusuki wa mahya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. And this ayah, which is very powerful, that we should understand and recite it once in a while, just to get to that meaning. So when we get to that ayah, really focus on the meaning of how we can be dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how all these other things doesn't matter. And if we have that dedication, it's going to prevent us and stop us from doing something like ascribing a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's where the surah ends, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He lets us know that there's differences amongst you. Why? There's a test. Why is someone a king and someone a slave? Why is someone rich and someone poor? Why is someone strong and someone weak? All these are tests for both sides, not just for one side. The king will be tested. Is he going to be oppressive or just? The subject is going to be tested. Is he going to listen to the king or rebel for no reason? Or constantly, is the weak going to help is the strong going to help the weak? And is the weak going to be patient in the situation that they're in? Every single situation, every single one of us, we're a test for one another. The parent is a test for the child is a test for the parent. Every single person you run to. You're your own main character in this life, that everyone else is a co-star for you. And you're being tested by every single one of those co-stars. And every single thing is being written down. And ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you do a good deed, it's going to be multiplied by 10. You do a bad deed, it will just be written as is. But even that, if you make tawbah, then it will be erased like it never existed. And it ends with that. And then when we start the new surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, starts off with the story of Adam alayhi salam and the shaitan. We talked about Adam alayhi salam and the shaitan in Surah Al-Baqarah. Now it's a different angle where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives more detail of shaitan's reaction to why he disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to us some of the methods that shaitan uses to come at us and what his purpose is. And if we pay attention to those, then he has no power over us. So one of the things that he wants to do is he wants to make us all ungrateful to him. That he's going to try to hide all the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from around us and make us ungrateful. So what do? How do we counter that? By being grateful. If we're grateful, then the shaitan is not doing his job. And you see now, right after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to the story of Adam alayhi salam, where Adam alayhi salam was put in Al-Jannah, according to some scholars, in another place according to others. But he was there in Al-Jannah, let's just say, and he was told, do not eat from this tree. And shaitan went and gave him these whispers. And he didn't give him any kind of thing like, hey, you should disobey, you should rebel, you should, become, it's better to be bad. He didn't come at him that way. He told them, do you want to be like the angels? They're the most obedient servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you want to make sure you never get out of this place? I know how to do it. It will let you be like the malaikas, and it will let you live here forever. Go eat from that tree. And he kept giving him this whisper and so many different angles that he went after him. We'll learn more of the angles that he went after him as we get to other surahs. And ultimately, Adam alayhi salam, when he ate from it. Now shaitan thinks he's victorious. He's like, see, the first two created, Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayhi salam, they're ungrateful. But you see, you can just see maybe the pride and joy that he had when they did disobey. But look at the difference. He just said, قَالَ رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا, which is a very good dua that we should read every time, where Adam alayhi salam said, we oppressed ourselves. And if you don't forgive us, that's it. We lost. So please have mercy on us. Which is different than shaitan, who tried to justify and said, no, I'm better than him. This is not going to work. Why would I prostrate to someone that's lower than me? And again, this is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he says that shaitan will trick the human being by committing a sin, and he gets them that way. The human being gets them back by making tawbah, because when he makes tawbah, shaitan is as if he didn't do anything. Then shaitan, he will trick him and start making him do these kinds of certain innovations that he doesn't know he's doing a bad deed, which he doesn't make tawbah for. And that's how shaitan gets him back. So it's a constant struggle between us and shaitan for our own salvation. That we always try to stay in the path, and if we go astray from the path, then we make tawbah. And we keep on that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for us. So then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just for the sake of time, we can get into it. It's you can go into the meaning of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of how the people in Al-Jannah and the people of Hellfire will have a conversation. And ultimately, it's like everything that the people of Jannah believed came to be true. And the people of the Hellfire are lost completely. And then to the point where they're asking them for water or food. And they're like, listen, we can't bring you food. This is things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made haram in this life for you. So when we abstain from the haram over here in this life, we're saved and given everything in the afterlife. If we indulge in the haram in this life, then everything becomes haram for us in the afterlife. And ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just to show that this is not something new, it's a recurring theme of people giving the Prophets ﷺ a hard time. Certain people follow, certain people don't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking of the story of the different Prophets ﷺ that He had sent. We'll talk about that next time, inshallah. So, Jazakumullah khairan. Tonight we'll be reciting the 8th juz by Sheikh Nasir al-Qatami. Inshallah, and then afterwards, hopefully it goes all the way. If it cuts off, we'll just continue where we left off, inshallah. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.